Once the tide turns and we really enter this full-blown recession, what sort of appraisal jobs and services are going to be in high demand?
Ooh.
Well, I think those that really can do more than walk and chew gum, as we've talked about, could you do adaptive reuse? We're remaking our supply chain in America. We're having rail mergers, Kansas City Southern and Canadian Pacific. There's probably going to be Canadian National that's going to go after CSX or Norfolk Southern. What does that mean if our supply chain moves more north-south from Canada to Mexico than it does from California to Chicago? Huge implications if you do industrial. On multifamily, I hear too many multifamily appraisers say, I just do apartments. I don't worry about single family. You better pay attention to single family. Commercial real estate follows the rooftops. And if the rooftops are bad and people aren't selling their homes because they can't afford a new mortgage or whatnot, then it affects what can happen in multifamily. And I think multifamily is going to continue to stay very strong. You can't buy a home. The mortgage rates have doubled. The interest rates have doubled. So people are backing up, and the new household formation is going to have to stay in multifamily. So I think, we become more complex. You better be beefed up on your economic skills. You better know, for example, right now, we don't have LIBOR anymore. We have SOFR, the overnight funding rate. Can any of you ever remember a time when LIBOR was above the 10-year treasury? Well, the LIBOR replacement so far last week was above the 10-year treasury. This is insane. Those are construction loans. So if you're looking at almost a 4% variable rate SOFR construction loan, what do you think that's going to do to construction lending? So you need to understand how these economic pieces feed into different things. Look at the volatility index, the VIX. I'm sure, Rodman, you look at that. It tells you when the market's in freak out mode. And when we're in these periods of transition where things are bottoming down, that's where appraisers do their work that's going to expose them most to litigation. So you need to be tougher at, how you defend certain assumptions. And that's why in a cash flow DCF, I'll use and look at those earnings statements that talk about absorption, or, say like a Home Depot's only built 5 stores in the last 4 years and none with a garden center. So when I'm doing an appraisal on one of those, I have some nuggets out of those earnings that I can point to, and I can utilize it bulletproof myself, as Stephanie Coleman tells at the Institute. So beef up your skills, be much more diverse, beef up your economic skills, and be a voracious reader.
So I have a question adding on to that. Do you think you'll see more foreclosure type of jobs out there in this market if the recession continues? And this is, you guys are the experts being an appraiser. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, go ahead, Rob. I really don't, because on the residential, we've got a lot of equity in our homes. People have 2.9 to 3.5 interest rates. They don't have to move. They can keep it going. They've been paying down those mortgages. There's a lot of equity. We have some of the most amount of equity in our single family homes. So I don't see it big time on the residential. Plus, there's so many, workforce that can't find housing that you can at least rent it and pay your mortgage. On the commercial, I think it could be bad in office, but it's going to be big office. It's going to be the big CBD stuff that the life companies are trying to dump right now. They know they've already lost 20% of the value. They know they're going to lose another 30%. Retail, we've already gone through it. We've been going through a decade of e-commerce really whacking retail, and we saw retail come through COVID and really become more service oriented than goods selling. So if you look at a shopping center today, there's more services that are in those bays than there are goods selling type things. Like I said, I don't see the problems in multifamily. I don't see them in warehouse. Remember, commercial follows the rooftops. Right. And I don't see an implosion on the rooftop. So I don't think it's going to be like what we're seeing in a recession now is what we thought we were going to see in 2021. And it's all Fed induced. And so if the Fed can knock it off, if they don't, how they're just going to ruin the world.
And Johnny, to piggyback on that, the thing that I think about when you're talking about foreclosure, I think the one group that really probably has the highest risk is that buyer who bought at the top of the market. They were one of 20 people who went and overbid a property by $100,000 just to get the property. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden they lose their job. Right. Mm-hmm. And then their property's not worth that overpayment that they made. It'll be so much easier for somebody to walk away from a property like that than if they had some equity or if they had, some skin in the game. So there might be a few of those transactions when it comes to the foreclosures. But, when you're thinking about doing the work, I know that Lucas asked about, the work that's going to be coming through, what's going to look like, that kind of thing. You really got to think in terms of like in 2000 and when it hit the fan in 08 and 09, there was a lot of work out there. There was a lot, but that's when we were doing a lot of workout stuff. Right. But that work was so much more complicated. Mm-hmm. It was so much more diverse. It is so much easier to be an appraiser in an up market when everything's going well, when everything's upswinging, when you're going to have to drop that word cookie cutter out of your brain right now, and know that you're just not going to have that luxury of that cookie cutter, because number one, the market's not going to allow for it, because we're used to looking back as appraisers. But now it's hard to look back. What are you going to see when you look back 3 months ago? You're going to see a whole different interest rate environment. You're going to see a whole different buying environment. We're used to looking back, and we just don't have that luxury. So we're going to have to really put on our thinking caps as appraisers, really turn on what we're doing. And it's going to be really difficult. It's hard work to appraise in this type of economy. So I get excited about it, but I'm kind of nerdy like that, where I like the numbers. I like to try to, Casey, I know you're smiling, but I know you're like that too, where you really want to go in and you want to figure this out, figure out the current puzzle. But all appraisers are going to have to do that in this current economic climate, because it's just different than it is when we're in a really big upswing.
Give you a great example of what Rodman's talking about. Look at redemptions in REITs right now. We've seen from BlackRock and we've seen from Starwood. It started over in UK over a month ago. And so when these REITs can't meet the redemption requests, you get entities that start to freak out, and they really want to know the valuation of that REIT and the individual assets that underlie them. That's where they call someone like Rodman or myself and say, help me figure out this whole REIT puzzle and what it's worth. And should I stay in? Should I get out? Should I freak over these redemptions? That's exactly what Rodman's talking about. We're going to see different structures, different challenges. They're more complex. And you got to understand how those capital vehicles really translate to our world. So what does a REIT world mean in terms of valuation downstream? Or, you look at, look at the NAREIT data, look at the agricultural, NACREIF has a farmland index, and they have funds that are in there buying up, billions of dollars of farmland every year. And if you look at them, you go to the USDA farmland survey every year, they track every acreage sale over 100 acres, and they compute a cap rate. The average cap rate's below 3%. Are you kidding me? But that's what farmland and ranch land is for. If you can value that and understand those pieces, you have a niche. And all of those old ag appraisers, they're all dying or having hip replacements and can't go inspect the properties. They need a new generation. So if you're in the Middle West part of the country, there's a huge opportunity. We're losing almost all of our ag and farm and ranch land appraisers. There's just, like you said, Rodman and Johnny, there's a lot of opportunity if we take time to back up and look at things from a broader view.